In this series of videos, we will read the Care Certificate workbooks, both what you need to know and what do you know now. This video covers Standard 3, Duty of Care and what you need to know. It's over to my colleague to read through this workbook.
The Care Certificate, Duty of Care, what you need to know, Standard 3 of the Care Certificate workbook. Duty of Care. You have a duty of care to all those receiving care and support in your workplace. This means promoting well-being and making sure that people are kept safe from harm, abuse and injury. Duty of care is a legal requirement. You cannot choose whether to accept it. It applies as soon as someone has care or treatment. Breaking this duty, for example, through negligence, could result in legal action. Well-being. Well-being could be defined as the positive way in which a person feels and thinks of themselves. Code of conduct. The code of conduct tells you how you are expected to behave as a care worker. Your duty of care is also to other workers, for example, in the hospital to doctors, nurses and healthcare support workers, but also to caterers, cleaners and maintenance workers. If you are a home care worker, you'll probably work alone in a variety of homes, but there may well be other people in these premises, as well as whoever you are there to support. Your duty of care is to each individual and to the other workers you come into contact with within the community. The duty of care is part of the Code of Conduct for healthcare support workers and adult social care workers in England, and will most likely also be in your job description. It is important that you have the knowledge and skills to act on your duty of care in your role, but also so you don't work beyond it. As part of your duty of care, you should pass on any concerns that you have about well-being. Every employer has agreed ways of working to respond to possible harmful situations, which will include how to report any concerns. Concerns could be from anything from poor working conditions or equipment to untrained workers, as well as suspected abuse. In any situation, if you do not know what to do, you should ask your manager. Providing guidance about how to deal with abuse and violence or substance misuse, or how to handle toxic substances or carry out risk assessments are all part of making sure the duty of care is carried out. Fire drills, agreed ways of working, handling medication, as well as cooking and food storage procedures are some of the routine ways for making sure that everyone knows how to fill their duty of care. The agreed ways of working vary from one workplace to another, so you need to check them if you move to a new job in health and social care. Agreed ways of working should be documented, but even if you are told about them only in conversation, you must still work on them. Supporting independence. The Code of Conduct says that you must work in ways that respect and protect the individual rights, including their right to live as independently as possible, to make their own choices and to take risks. There may be times where they make choices that you think are unwise, unsafe, or that you disagree with. For example, when someone with a disability wants to try a new physical activity, or when someone chooses not to eat less fatty foods. You should make sure that they have as much information as possible about their choices and what could happen. If they still choose to make a more risky choice, a risk assessment may identify ways in which risk can be reduced and the individual can be supported to make those decisions. But the right to make decisions that they are legally capable of making must not be taken away from them by social care or healthcare workers. Your employer will give you guidance on risk assessments, risk enablement, and health and safety. Whatever you come across, you have to consider the individual's well-being as your main priority. If you are unsure about any situation, ask your manager. Other sources of support might be the individual's friends or family, a befriender or an advocate, their GP or another care worker. Advocate. An advocate is a trusted, independent person who can speak and act for the individual. They can advise on matters such as welfare, benefits, and can ensure that the individual's point of view is heard in care planning meetings, to make sure decisions are made in the interest of the individual. The importance of advocates and advocacy services is emphasised by the Care Act 2014. Individuals make decisions all the time and should be supported to do so. Sometimes an individual may not be able to understand and retain the information they need to make a decision or communicate their choice. If this is the case, they may lack the mental capacity to make the decision. They may be able to make day-to-day decisions, for example, what to wear, what or when they want to eat, but not able to make decisions about money or medical issues. In situations where you are not entirely sure about the individual's capacity, please seek additional advice or guidance. You will look at issues about people's capability or capacity to make decisions for themselves with varying levels of support, especially if they have mental ill health, dementia, or learning disabilities, in more detail in Standard 9. Comments and complaints. You have a duty of care to make sure that each individual knows that they have a right to complain or comment about their care or support. It is important that this is able to happen quickly and in a positive way. They should be taken seriously and explored so that any learning can be used to keep doing the right thing or to make improvements. Positive comments can be encouraged and used to show how good ways of working are making a positive difference. Ask your employee to tell you about what to do when someone wants to make a complaint or a comment. The Local Authority Social Services and NHS Complaints England Regulations 2009 are a legislation for complaints in the health and social care. The Department of Health also published the NHS Constitution 2012, which tells you about guiding principles and patients' rights. There should be a recorded process to follow, which may differ depending on the type of workplace, and have a time limit in which the complaint has to be made after the situation happened. If someone wants to make a comment or complaint, you should deal with it in line with your organisation's agreed ways of working. Depending where you work, that could include arranging to talk in private, making sure the individual knows that you may need to pass on information if there is a risk to safety of themselves or others, listening calmly and actively, assuring them that you are taking them seriously, not judging or becoming emotional, offering your support but not trying to answer the issue before the agreed ways of working has taken place, explaining what will happen next, who the complaint will be passed to, and when the person will get some feedback. Thank them, tell your manager what has been said, and make a record as soon as possible. Often the size of the organisation has one named person who deals with complaints. Depending on the size of the organisation, where there may be a complaint section, such as the NHS Patients Advice and Liaison Services, or PALS, you should ask who is a responsible person or accountable officer for your workplace. Smaller workplaces may not have anything in writing, but still have an agreed ways of working when complaints are made. Incidents, errors, and near misses. Sadly, having the best ways of working, the code of conduct and duty of care, doesn't always protect vulnerable adults from harm. All health and social care workplaces involve workers collaborating towards the well-being of those needing care or support. Mistakes happen through things like lack of knowledge, poor communication, or not sharing information, stress, negligence, or being distracted. Mistakes are seen as being as one of the following: an adverse event, action or lack of action that leads to unexpected, unintended, and preventable harm. Errors, not doing something as it should have been done, for example, through bad planning or being forgetful. Near misses, situations where an action could have harmed the individual either by chance or purpose was prevented. Incidents, specific negative events in health and social care. Serious incidents are described as events that need investigation as they cause severe harm or damage to either the person receiving the care or organisation. The first thing to do after something has gone wrong is to do what you can to improve the well-being and meet the immediate needs of the individuals involved. Your workplace will have a form which you should complete to record incidents, accidents, and near misses. You should record the date, time, and the facts. This is used to make your manager aware straight away. Do not blame others or suggest that others involved why the incident might have happened, even if you have an idea of why it was. If your thoughts turned out to be wrong, you could lose the trust with the individual and the family, and also the trust and respect. Legislation. For health and social care work, a variety of legislation sets out standards of how to handle issues to improve services and positive outcomes. Part of the 6 C's, care and compassion. Think clearly and carefully about the potential reasons for someone's distress. Use your person-centered approach and knowledge of them as an individual, as you may be able to de-escalate a challenging situation by recognizing their unmet needs and responding to these with support, care, or additional services. The Health and Safety at Work Act. This is the main piece of legislation covering occupational health and safety within the UK. Places a duty on employers and employees for the health and safety and well-being of persons within the workplace. That's the link just there. The Management of Health and Safety Regulations 1999. Workplaces should have a procedure in place for recording, reporting, and evaluating all serious incidents. They should take measures to avoid them happening again. And that's that link. The Reporting of Injuries, Diseases and Dangerous Occurrences Regulations 2013, RIDDOR. This places duties on responsible persons working in the premises to report specific workplace accidents, occupational diseases, and specific dangerous occurrences or near misses to their local health and safety executive, the HSE. The Control of Substances Hazardous to Health 2002, COSH. This requires employees to assess the risks of potentially harmful substances and take precautions to minimise these. They include, for example, cleaner materials and medication. That's the COSH link. The Provisions and Use of Work Equipment Regulations 1998, PURE. Anyone responsible for work equipment should ensure that it is suitable for the job, well maintained, inspected regularly, and only operated by well-informed and trained staff. A breach of any of these regulations is a crime in the UK and therefore needs to be reported immediately. If any person suffers harm as a result, the offender may be taken to court. And that's the PURE link there. Managing conflict and difficult situations. There are many things that can cause conflict with and between people. Conflict or behaviour that is challenging often happens as a result of distress or because needs are not being met. It could be caused by a number of factors including biological. For example, because an individual is in pain or suffering the side effects of medication or substance misuse. Social. For example, because the person is bored, wanting social contact, having a need to be in control, not being able to communicate or understand what is being said. Environmental. For example, because of a loud noise or bad lighting or barriers to mobility. Psychological. For example, because of feeling left out or lonely. Your workplace may have a policy on responding to behaviour that challenges. There will usually be a form to report what happened, who has been involved, and where and when the incident took place. You should include whether anyone has been injured and needed medical assistance or whether the police have been called, and sign and date the form. This will then be used to determine any action that is needed to support the individual better. An open discussion with any individual where they are treated with respect and dignity can often find a solution. If possible and safe, when working with a person whose behaviour is challenging, take them to a quiet place, ask questions and listen carefully to what they said, take their feelings of being upset or angry seriously, and try and find a way forward and that they understand and can agree to. It is important that you get to know the individuals you are working with as far as possible, so you can recognise what triggers their distress. It is also important that you don't get too emotionally involved, but keep a clear head and look out for body language and reactions. If you feel that a one-to-one situation between yourself and an individual has a potential to become confrontational, you should try to leave the scene and give them time to calm down. When you recognise frustration and aggression in a person's behaviour, you will learn as you develop in your role how your communication skills and other ways of working to manage a situation before it becomes violent or aggressive. Your manager will provide guidance, explain ways of working, and support you develop your knowledge and skills as you progress in your work.
Great work on finishing this What You Need to Know booklet. In this series, we also have the What Do You Need to Know activity booklet that follows on from this video.